What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to check out one of the biggest nerfs that will happen in ROX SEA. Now, if you haven't seen or heard about this news, this is coming from a very long post made by ROX, and for some people, they just don't have the patience to read all of these things. The TLDR of this post is all about nerfing the Alberta enchantment, which will significantly affect the penetration classes in the game. So in this video, I will be showing the ROX devlogs to show and understand their feedback as to why they are doing this optimization next month. But before we start, a quick word from the sponsor of this video. On August 23 to 31, UgPhone is having another mega sale for the following devices shown on the screen, starting from a 40% off on all 30-day subscriptions and a 50% off for their 90-day subscriptions. Do note that this August mega sale is only available for the Hong Kong, Singapore, and Indonesian servers. So what are you waiting for? Make sure to get your UgPhone device now. Don't forget to use my link shown in the video description below and my invitation code shown on your screen. Now let's get back to the video. So a few days ago, ROX posted the official devlog about this enchantment optimization that will happen in early September. In this post, they have listed the frequently asked questions about this update and provided their reasoning as to why they are doing these changes. So for the first question regarding the go live of this optimization, this will be released in early September. For the second question, this is all about the compensation for the players who will be affected by this patch. Now, I'm not really going to read the whole statement of ROX. I'm just going to give you guys the gist of their statement and my own personal feedback. So for the players who has an Alberta accessory enchantment at level 12 or higher, they will receive a reward package for each qualifying enchantment. It includes enchantment conversion tickets and starlight enchantment conversion stones. The maximum number of compensation a character can receive is at 9. Basically, this is corresponding to the number of lines that have an enchantment level of 12 or higher. Now in my opinion, this is very important to have, as this so-called optimization has a very big impact to the progress of the penetration builds. So I really appreciate the fact that they are at least providing compensation to the players. On to the next question, which is about the changes with the attributes and why only Alberta enchantments are getting compensated. Based on their feedback, the raw numbers of enchantment attributes will not be reduced. So basically, the numbers that we see in our equipment will not change. However, this optimization will lower the conversion rate of the stats, such as the physical and magical penetration, into final attributes. From an objective standpoint, I totally agree that the Alberta penetration enchantments are very strong. I can tell from personal experience, as both of my characters are using these enchantments in the game. So I can totally understand why they are targeting the Alberta enchantments for this optimization. Moving on to the next question, why are Alberta's percentage attributes considered unbalanced? Now this is an interesting question, and to be honest, I have two opinions about their feedback. The Alberta percentage enchantments outperforms enchantments from cities that appear in the later stages, meaning these are the newer cities or towns that are being released from recent patches. They even stated an example comparing Geffen, which provides a final penetration stat for both the weapon and accessories. However, this is still being outperformed by Moroc's fixed penetration on the weapon and Alberta's percentage penetration on accessory enchantments, which makes it clear that the lower towns are giving higher returns than advanced or newer areas in the game. Now, as mentioned earlier, I can see two sides of the coin in this topic. From the developer's standpoint, I can see why they want to nerf the Alberta enchantments, because if they don't, releasing enchantments to newer or late game cities will be rendered useless. Of course, Why would players move to higher level cities if they can get better stats by just using the Alberta enchantments? Especially since higher level cities requires expensive enchantment stones. Now, from a player's standpoint, this is really frustrating because players will be forced to move to a higher level city just to compensate for the lost stats. Of course, this is really bad for F2P players because this transition will take even longer than what they had to endure just to reach the Alberta enchantments. As an F2P myself, it took me a few months just to complete my Alberta enchantments for one character, and because of this update, I have to face that same problem again just to move to a higher or better enchantment location. But anyway, moving on to the next question, why nerf Alberta's enchantments instead of just buffing the crit enchantments to balance them out? This is another good question. Basically, they are saying that if they don't nerf Alberta's enchantments and force the penetration and critical damage to be equal, the early game attributes will be too strong, which will force them to make the later stage cities or towns to push their enchantment attributes even higher. As a result, it will further widen the gap between players. I think what they mean by this is that the gap between the spenders and the F2P will grow a lot bigger. Again, from an objective standpoint, I can totally understand where they are coming from. If they don't tone down the Alberta enchantments, the newer town enchantment attributes will be forced to go even higher. Because if they don't do that, then what's the point in even releasing new maps with better enchantment attributes? There's literally no advantage in doing so. When they mentioned about the gap between players, if they don't lower down Alberta's enchantments and just make newer towns have insane enchantment attributes, of course, the whales will go for the higher stats even more, which will then lead to a bigger gap between them and the casuals or F2P. On to the next question. Since one-handed weapons have fixed penetration but two-handed ones don't, won't this change make the gap between them even bigger? Now I'm very much interested in their feedback for this topic because I am one of the players who have seen both sides. Because my Imperial Guard is using a one-handed sword which has a penetration stat and an Inquisitor which uses a two-handed weapon and has a useless haste stat. From their feedback, since one-handed weapons have fixed penetration stat and neither one nor two-handed builds rely on haste, the percentage bonus to penetration actually gives one-handed weapons more benefit. After fixing the penetration conversion rates, the gap between one and two-handed weapons will actually get smaller. This is quite interesting. Since they didn't really give out any specific details to their answer, I'll just have to check this out once the patch gets implemented. But this is something that needs to be addressed because as an LKN Shura player, the haste stat of the two-handed weapon is pretty much useless in my opinion. On to the next question, what's the point of the new enchantment rating system? Now for this topic, they are basically saying that the primary aim for this new enchantment rating system is to reduce the cost of cultivating multiple enchantment sets, specifically hinting at players who are using PvP attributes. For this one, I think it's a lot better and a lot easier to understand once this has been implemented in the game. So I'll just make a separate video about this once the patch gets released. And finally, to the last question in the devs log, do I still need an enchantment stone when using an enchantment conversion ticket? This is a great question, and unfortunately, the answer is yes. The ticket must be used together with an enchantment stone when converting Alberta enchantments. The ticket works only for Alberta accessory enchantments, but once used, you can transfer them to any later city. That's quite unfortunate because you still need to craft or buy enchantment stones in order to move to a different city, which again will require a lot of crystals or resources on our end. Here is my overall opinion about this optimization patch. From the devs' point of view, I can totally understand where they are coming from. Since they are still releasing new content and new towns in the game, they are trying to make sure that the players will have a reason to engage in the late game content that they are implementing. However, from a player's point of view, especially me who is an F2P, this is probably one of my worst nightmares. Because now, instead of having the Alberta enchantment as a solid staple to my build, I am being forced to move to a higher town in order to compensate for the stats that will be nerfed in the upcoming patch. This is not an easy task to do, as this will take a lot of time and effort, and of course, luck in order to get back the lost stats. But anyway, what are your thoughts on the upcoming enchantment optimization in the game? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, and if you want to see more ROX content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. GG!
You're a superhero.